The summer of 1967 wasn't just about flower power and protests. It was when music transformed forever. While the Vietnam War escalated and racial tensions boiled over in Detroit's riots, these songs became the soundtrack to a divided America. Let's explore 5 revolutionary tracks that defined 1967 and still resonate today. A Whiter Shade of Pale by Procol Harum remains one of the most enigmatic hits in rock history. The band formed in 1967 in Essex, England, launching their career with this Baroque-influenced masterpiece that instantly topped the UK charts.
We skip the light fandango.
What many listeners don't know is that Procol Harum nearly disbanded before they even recorded it. Their initial demos were rejected by multiple labels who claimed their sound was too complex for mainstream audiences. The record executives couldn't have been more wrong. The song's ambiguous lyrics about drunken seduction sparked controversy, with several religious groups condemning its supposed immoral messaging, while the Bach-inspired organ melody confused rock purists who believed the genre should remain pure and separate from classical influences. The band's keyboardist, Matthew Fisher, waited nearly 40 years before he received proper credit for co-writing the iconic organ melody, finally winning a lengthy court battle in 2009. After their initial success, Procol Harum struggled to maintain commercial relevance despite critical acclaim, breaking up in 1977 before reforming in the 1990s. The band's legacy remains firmly intact thanks to their groundbreaking fusion of classical structures with rock instrumentation. Their 2017 album, Novum, showed they could still craft sophisticated music, though nothing would ever match their debut single's cultural impact. The song's organ melody was directly inspired by Bach's Air on the G string and Sleepers Awake, but creator Gary Brooker admitted he had never formally studied Bach's work. He simply absorbed the Baroque style through cultural osmosis. The recording was completed in just 2 takes, with producer Denny Cordell choosing the first take for the final release, believing it captured a raw magic that subsequent attempts couldn't match. The track's title came from a Dylan Thomas phrase, though lyricist Keith Reed transformed its meaning entirely, creating what many musicologists now consider the perfect marriage of poetic ambiguity and musical sophistication. Somebody to Love by Jefferson Airplane represents the moment when psychedelic rock crashed into mainstream consciousness. The band formed in 1965 in San Francisco as part of the burgeoning Haight-Ashbury scene, but their 1967 breakthrough wasn't the feel-good hippie anthem many assume. Lead vocalist Grace Slick, who wrote the song, joined Jefferson Airplane after leaving a competing band called The Great Society, bringing Somebody to Love with her. The track's demanding vocals and confrontational tone challenged the status quo, with Slick, one of rock's first prominent female voices, defiantly asking, "Don't you want somebody to love?" during a time when traditional gender roles remained firmly entrenched. The FBI actually placed Jefferson Airplane on a watch list due to their countercultural influence and political activism, viewing their music as a genuine threat to the establishment. The band's original lineup fractured by the early 1970s, evolving into Jefferson Starship and later just Starship, producing mainstream hits that many critics viewed as betraying their experimental roots. Their commercial metamorphosis from acid rock pioneers to creators of 1980s corporate rock ballads like We Built This City remains one of music's most controversial transformations. Slick, now 84, left the music industry decades ago to become a visual artist, occasionally surfacing for interviews where she typically dismisses questions about nostalgia. The remaining original members have occasionally reunited for special performances, though internal tensions have prevented any sustained collaborations. Former bassist Jack Cassidy and guitarist Jorma Kaukonen continue performing as Hot Tuna, preserving elements of Jefferson Airplane's blues roots. The song almost never happened. Slick was nearly fired from Jefferson Airplane after her first few performances due to stage fright causing pitch problems. The band's manager convinced the others to give her another chance, resulting in one of rock's most powerful vocal performances. During the recording session, Slick sang the final take after drinking a bottle of wine to calm her nerves, which producer Rick Jarrett claims gave the track its raw emotional edge. When performing the song live at Woodstock in 1969, Slick famously addressed the crowd as morning people at 8 a.m. after the band had been delayed all night, delivering the song to exhausted festival goers as the sun rose over Max Yasgur's farm. Hey friends, if these songs take you back to your youth, don't keep those memories to yourself. Hit that like button if you remember where you were when you first heard Jefferson Airplane. Drop a comment about your favorite memory from 1967, and subscribe to our channel for more music history that respects the intelligence of our generation. And share this video with your friends who still appreciate when music had substance. Now, let's continue our journey through 1967's revolutionary soundscape. Soul Man by Sam and Dave emerged from tragedy to become a defiant statement of black pride. The duo formed in Miami in 1961, but it wasn't until they signed with Stax Records that they found their signature sound. Isaac Hayes and David Porter wrote Soul Man after watching news coverage of the 1967 Detroit riots, noticing how some black homeowners wrote Soul on their doors to prevent arson by indicating black ownership.
I'm coming to you on a tough road.
This context gives the song's triumphant declaration, "I'm a soul man," a political dimension rarely acknowledged in mainstream coverage at the time. The track's horn arrangements, engineered to sound like they were recorded in a bathroom to achieve a distinctive echo, created a template that countless funk and R&B artists would follow. However, white-owned radio stations in several southern states initially refused to play the song due to its perceived racial messaging. Sam Moore and Dave Prater's partnership was famously troubled despite their on-stage chemistry, with the two rarely speaking off-stage during their later years performing together. After their 1981 breakup, their paths diverged dramatically. Moore achieved sobriety and continued performing solo, while Prater struggled with substance abuse issues before dying in a 1988 car accident. Their influence remains immeasurable, with artists from the Blues Brothers to Michael Jackson citing their energetic performance style as inspiration. Despite selling millions of records, Sam and Dave saw relatively little financial reward due to exploitative contracts typical of the era, with Moore later becoming an advocate for artist rights and royalty reform. In 2019, Sam Moore, now in his late 80s, received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, finally receiving long overdue recognition for his contributions to American music. Strawberry Fields Forever by the Beatles represents John Lennon at his most vulnerable and experimental. The band, formed in Liverpool in 1960, had already conquered conventional pop music by 1967 and was ready to revolutionize the studio recording process itself.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to.
Lennon wrote the song during a Spanish film shoot, homesick and increasingly alienated by fame. The track's title references a Salvation Army children's home near his childhood home, where he would escape to process his feelings about being abandoned by his father and losing his mother in a tragic accident. The song underwent a remarkable technical achievement. Producer George Martin spliced together two completely different versions in different keys and tempos, a nearly impossible feat in the pre-digital era. Critics initially savaged the song, with prominent newspaper The Daily Mail calling it psychedelic gibberish and evidence that the Beatles had lost their way, an assessment that seems laughable in retrospect. The band never performed Strawberry Fields Forever live, as it marked their transition from touring act to studio artists. Following their 1970 breakup, each Beatle pursued solo careers with varying degrees of success, though Lennon's life was cut short by his 1980 murder. Paul McCartney, now 82, continues touring and recording, while Ringo Starr leads his all-star band. George Harrison passed away in 2001 after a successful solo career, and the song's legacy lives on through countless covers and its influence on generations of artists experimenting with psychedelic production techniques. In 2017, Liverpool finally opened the Strawberry Field Gates to the public as a tourist attraction and youth training center, acknowledging the song's cultural importance after decades of keeping fans at bay with no trespassing signs that ironically echoed Lennon's lyrics about places where nothing is real. Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues broke all the rules of commercial radio and succeeded anyway. The band formed in Birmingham, England in 1964 as a standard R&B outfit, but their metamorphosis into symphonic rock pioneers was complete by 1967. The song, written by Justin Hayward at just 19 years old after a girlfriend gave him satin sheets, closed their landmark concept album, Days of Future Past, a project initially intended as a demonstration record for stereo equipment. The track's nearly 7-minute length violated radio's 3-minute rule, while its orchestral arrangement confused DJs about whether to categorize it as rock or classical music. Decca Records initially refused to release it as a single, believing it was too depressing for mainstream audiences. When finally released, it took 5 years to reach its peak chart position, an unheard-of time frame in the fast-moving music industry. The Moody Blues continued exploring the fusion of rock and orchestral music throughout the 70s before embracing a more synthesizer-driven sound in the 1980s. Justin Hayward and John Lodge continued touring as the Moody Blues, though founding member Ray Thomas passed away in 2018 and drummer Graham Edge died in 2021. The band was finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018 after being eligible for over 25 years. A delay many fans attributed to critical bias against progressive rock. Their distinctive mellotron sound influenced countless progressive rock bands, while their conceptual approach to album construction helped legitimize rock music as an art form worthy of serious critical consideration. Despite their undeniable influence, the Moody Blues remain somewhat underappreciated by mainstream rock historians, perhaps because their romantic cosmic lyrics and orchestral arrangements defied the rawer aesthetic traditionally championed by rock critics. The spoken word poem, Late Lament, that concludes the song wasn't written by the band at all, but by their label's marketing director, Peter Knight, who composed it the night before recording. The mellotron used on the track was purchased from the Beatles, who had used it on Strawberry Fields Forever. The band didn't realize they were creating a progressive rock masterpiece. They were simply trying to fulfill a label request to record Dvorak's Symphony No. 9 with rock instrumentation. After deciding they weren't classically trained enough for that task, they wrote their own music instead, essentially inventing symphonic rock by accident. Though released in 1967, the song didn't become a top 10 hit in America until 1972, when a DJ in Seattle began playing it regularly, creating renewed demand that spread across the country and pushed it to number 2 on the Billboard charts 5 years after its initial release. The revolutionary sounds of 1967 emerged during a time of profound societal transformation. These artists didn't just create songs, they crafted cultural touchstones that still resonate with those of us who lived through that extraordinary year. Share your memories from 1967 in the comments. Subscribe for more journeys through music history, and remember, these weren't just songs, they were the soundtrack of our lives.